Dr. Copper, the metal with the PhD. All lights are green. Udo, Dr. Copper, what's going on with copper these days in the world markets?
Yeah, copper is called the metal with the PhD, and I think there's no other industrial metal that represents the status of the global economy in such a precise manner than copper. And we had this year already a strike at the biggest mine in Chile, in Escondida, and another suspension of the exports of the number 2 in Grasberg, in Indonesia. And that already put some constraints on the supply side. And we had already last year, if you see that chart, and already a price increase of about 25%. And that with an increase of the global production of about 5% to 20.5 million tons. And there's still, this year, further problems with the production in Chile as the biggest producer, Codelco.
That leads us to the supply side, of course, of copper.
Yeah, as you say, and Codelco still have maintenance problems. They won't increase production next 3-4 years. And the last issue on the supply side is that the grade of the ores are constantly dropping. We have been at 1% in the year 2000. We probably will drop to nearly only 0.5% in
that's per ton of rock.
By a ton of rock till end of 2025. And
wow, that's 50% down.
That's 50% copper grade decrease. And you see it with the long-term chart. Copper was coming low for 5 years, a bear market, and then we had last year a big reversal in the copper price. At the moment, we have a kind of a consolidation, but it just shows the economy, the global economy is picking up. I think that's one part of the message what we receive from the copper prices.
But that would mean that like a new trend starts to establish?
You could say so, because we have supply issues, but also from the demand side, there's new demand coming in, and that's kind of this green revolution what we have with the electric vehicles, and they consume I think about 4 times as much copper as a regular car. A regular car uses about 20 kilos, and an electric vehicle is about 80 kilos. So you have a 4-fold increase in demand just from the electric vehicle side. But there are other green industries where lots of more copper is needed. And Robert Friedland, he's one of the big guys in the mining sector. There's no modern world, no technology without copper. So copper is needed in more or less all of these energy savings applications what we have. That makes copper really interesting. And from this chart from Bloomberg, you see we will have probably deficit already this year because of the strikes in Escondida and the Grasberg issue. And this deficit is going to grow the next couple of years. So we will face a major copper deficit the next couple of years that we'll face.
Okay. Yeah, and as we all know, copper is, of course, or let's say not only copper, but if the markets are going into deficits, if the demand is higher than supply, finally the prices should rise.
Absolutely. Right?
And this leads us, of course, to China one more time. Yeah, China is always a country which is important for so many commodities. But why is, let's say, China and also the world, why we need the copper so much? And I think you have 2 interesting charts here.
Yeah, China is not just for copper, but for many other metals, in the meantime, the biggest importer. And China was always, the last couple of years, put in question that the GDP growth was coming lower, but we saw last year and now this year that the purchasing managers indices of the manufacturing side as well as on the non-manufacturing side, especially housing, is starting to increase, as you see on the chart with the red line. And copper is following China's purchasing managers indices or composite index very close and tracks them. And that's still increasing, so we still can expect further demand from China for the copper side. And another indicator more directly is the freight turnover, and that's more or less exploding last year and continuing this year. So there's something going on in China, and it's definitely not a slowdown what we see there.
Exactly, yeah, so that's a real different signal from what we read in the mass media, because everybody's telling us, oh, China's maybe slowing down, maybe the economy is not growing as fast as it was. But this is, I would say, a clear fact that the opposite side is taking place now.
Absolutely, and just to remember, I think in November, China sent the longest train ride ever from Jiwu to Madrid. So they kind of re-establish the old Silk Road and bring Europe and Asia and especially China closer together. That trip took round trip 16,165 miles. Jesus. So that's 450 miles longer than the longest train ride we had so far, the Trans-Siberian line. And that just shows you China is getting close, and China wants to do trade with Europe. And it's not just that longest railway connection what we have seen so far, but there's many other trade issues, and China's thinking long term, and I think that's something to keep in mind.
Exactly. What I read yesterday is also, that's interesting that you bring that up. We have a connection directly in the harbor into Duisburg. And Duisburg is Germany, and that leads us to Arubis, yeah, which I really like. Thank you very much. I'm German. That's a nice homage. You have Arubis here, one of your topics in your fund, of course. Where have you got in? I hope you made some money already on that, because that chart looks really like the copper chart, right?
It looks even a little bit better. Arubis is one of the top copper producers and recyclers, of course, in Germany. And they do very well. And we bought them some time ago, and they trade on the new highs. And I think Arubis will be in the right sector if the copper prices continue to follow higher. And we have, of course, other names in Canada as well. But in Germany, Arubis is, I think, a nice company.
Great. Udo, thank you very much. Nice roundup and then wrap up on copper. I like that. And yeah, so to say, thanks for the interview.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Udo Sutterluety, the co-fund manager of Sunares Natural Resources Fund out of Austria. He's managing this with Colin Moore, his partner in London, together. And yeah, you heard it. Good times for copper. We saw a nice rise already, and the times are even getting better, as Udo referred. And I think it's time to get into copper and yeah, to have a close look on it. I'm your host, Jochen Steiger from Commodity TV in partnership with Dukascopy TV. Thanks for watching us. Bye-bye from Geneva.